It's time to talk about the unbalanced free rig. As a Korean American angler that grew up in Korea learning to bass fish, it is kind of my civic duty to let you know that the free rig is purely a Korean rig. It was invented by two Korean pros, and it's pretty much this is our Texas rig in Korea. The free rig essentially is a EWG hook online to a free sliding drop shot sinker, or like a grenade sinker or whatever you call it. But then what's an unbalanced free rig? So this is something that we talk about a lot in Korea. The unbalanced free rig really is when you use a worm, right? We want a big hook to minimize the amount of action that we're getting out of the worm that we're using, right? Something that's going to take up pretty much more than half of that worm. So something like this little roboworm Ned, it's taking up most of this worm. And for the weight, we go to something a little heavier than we usually do. For me, with a free rig, it's a 1/4 ounce to a 1/2 ounce. I'm using a 3/4 or a 3/8 ounce on the back here for this weight. And with this heavier weight and this small little plastic on it that's kind of constricted by the hook creates the unbalance. Now, this is why it's killer. Right now in the fall or in the winter, like here in Massachusetts, if you're in the fall, what's great with this is that when you cast this out and you're hopping this or dragging this through the bottom, this weight and this bait, it's going to be bumping against everything. However, this little worm that has very little action, it's going to actually emulate more of a small bait fish just darting around. Instead of getting this kind of, fluid movement, it's going to be a lot more rigid and kind of robotic. However, right now in the winter, when bass are cold and they don't want to see a lot of action and not everything in your pond is moving, what this becomes really good for is you're going to cast this out. You can make a nice accurate cast because it's a heavy weight. It's going to drop straight down. So put it in your high percentage areas like dark mud bottoms, big chunk rock, somewhere where the bass are holding for that heat. You're gonna let that sit, and because that weight's heavier, it's not gonna be moving as much. Just on a little bit of slack line, you're just gonna shake this free rig. And you're pretty much, all you're trying to do is do this. See how that weight's not moving and it's just kind of shaking in place? Underwater, all that means is that this little bait is just gonna do this. Barely moving in place. You can definitely do this like Z-Man Neds. I'm using a Robo Worm. Also, I got these baits sent from Zero Trace Baits. This is actually really exciting to try. They make these little Neds, but these are designed to be soluble in water. They're natural ingredients. So like if you get that bass and it shakes this worm off, it's gonna sit in that water and it'll end up dissolving, or even if a bass swallows it, it's not gonna be as harmful as something like a plastisol bait. It's not made out of plastisol. So if you're like me up here in the north and it's really cold, this is a great option to just shake in place when those bass are inactive. However, if you're in the south, start dragging this thing, start hopping this thing, get that crazy movement, because this is a great option for both fall, spring, winter, heck, even summer. So what are you waiting for? Get out there.